Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's topic is nutrition myths with diabetes. And my name is Samantha Chabior. I'm a registered dietitian at the University Health Network Cardiovascular Prevention and Rehabilitation Program, and I work out of the Toronto Western Hospital site. So for today, our main objective is to understand common nutrition myths with diabetes. And I think this is a really important topic because there's a lot of misinformation online and in the media about nutrition. So it can be really confusing to know what to believe. And of course, the research is always changing. So there's always new information coming out. And so hopefully today we will clear up some common myths that you might have heard about before regarding nutrition and diabetes. So we will be launching a poll just to kind of test your knowledge just for fun. It's, completely anonymous and just for you to kind of test your own knowledge. So we have a series of myths and I'll just read out the first one. So true or false, grains like breads, rice or cereal, and starches like potatoes and corn should be avoided if you have diabetes. So true or false? And we know that carbohydrates can raise our blood sugar. So, a lot of the times people wonder, is this something I should completely cut out? Is bread bad for you? Okay, so the answer is actually false. And the reason why is we actually recommend people choose grains and starches that are high in fiber and in the right amounts for you. So choosing whole grains and fiber-rich starches is what we encourage people to do. These foods give you energy and fiber. And fiber is the part of the plant that our body doesn't digest. So it doesn't actually turn to sugar in your body. And we can find fiber in whole grains like whole grain bread, whole grain cereal, brown rice, quinoa, barley, oatmeal, many other grains, and certain starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes and peas. And fiber actually has a lot of benefits. So, when it comes to blood sugar, it actually helps stabilize blood sugars. And what that means is it helps our blood sugars not kind of jump up and drop as quickly. It helps them slowly go up and slowly go down. It slows down the absorption of the sugar into our blood. So that's obviously beneficial for our blood sugars. It also helps with lowering cholesterol. So especially soluble fiber, a special type of fiber that's found in foods like oats and barley, that can help with lowering cholesterol levels. Fiber also helps promote a healthy digestive system. So keeping our bowels regular and moving. So for constipation and diarrhea, having enough fiber, the right amounts of fiber is really helpful for keeping things regular. It also helps increase the beneficial bacteria in our gut. So you may have heard of the gut microbiome or gut bacteria, and we actually have a lot of new research coming out saying that this is important to nourish this gut bacteria, and fiber found in many plant foods like whole grains actually helps increase and nourish and feed that good gut bacteria. Fiber also helps lower inflammation and supports a healthy immune system. So that's thinking about our, the types of grains and starches that we'd want to be choosing. But we also want to think about choosing them in the right amounts for you. So I always like to share a little bit about the diabetes plate model, which is this picture that you can see on your screen here. And you can see that the top half of this plate is divided into one section, and it's the non-starchy veggies. So these are our leafy greens, like kale, spinach, broccoli, our mushrooms, peppers, tomatoes, any of the veggies that are low in carbohydrates, so don't have a lot of starch. That would be, we want to fill half our plate with that. And then about a quarter of our plate, we'd want to fill with our whole grains and high fiber starches. So we're kind of having them on the plate because we know there's benefit. They give us energy and fiber, but of course they contain carbohydrates, so they will raise our blood sugars. So having them in the right amounts for you is going to be important. So we say about a quarter of your plate is kind of a good amount to aim for. And then the last quarter of the plate would be a nice lean protein. So that could be fish or chicken or vegetarian proteins. By trying to fill your plate in this manner, you're able to get a good balance for your blood sugars. Okay, myth number 2. So true or false, and we'll launch a poll for this as well. Fruit juice should be limited. So fruit juice, you might think of, whether it's freshly squeezed orange juice or whether it's store-bought. Is that something that we should be limiting? So in this case, the answer is actually true. We do encourage people to try and limit the amount of fruit juice that they have. And that's, true for people with diabetes, but also people that don't have diabetes. We encourage trying to limit fruit juice to no more than half a cup of juice per day because fruit juice has a lot of sugar and it has no fiber. So it will cause your blood sugars to rise quickly. So when we take a look over here, we have this little kind of graph. And if you see the first line in orange, it says liquid sugar. And so liquid sugar would be things like fruit juice and drinks, pop, Slurpees, iced coffee, drinks. So really any kind of liquid sugars. These, you can see they spike our sugars up really quickly and high and then drop them really fast as well. So out of all the different food groups that are listed on this graph, liquid sugar spikes our sugars the highest and the fastest. So it is going to be something we call high glycemic index, meaning it turns to sugar fast in our blood. So instead of choosing fruit juices, I encourage people to choose whole fruit instead. So they are lower in the glycemic index, meaning they raise your blood sugars more slowly. They contain fiber. So we talked all about the different benefits of having fiber in your diet. And they also have many healthy vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So when we see here the liquid sugar, the fruit juice, you can see how quickly within, about 15 minutes, it kind of spikes your sugar in your blood. Whereas fruit juice, whole fruit is actually slower than fruit juice. It's more slowly absorbed into our blood because our body has to work to break down that fiber in the flesh and skin of the fruit. So it takes longer for our sugars to go up, longer for them to go down. So it's more gradual and they don't go up quite as high. So on top of that, we do maybe want to think about what about natural fruit juice? So maybe you took an orange and you squeezed out, the juice out of it. Is that better than store-bought juice? So actually, it still has a lot of sugar. So even though maybe there's no added sugar, there's still a lot of that naturally occurring sugar from the fruit that you've kind of really concentrated and pulled out of the whole fruit. And it's actually common to see 25 to 30 grams of sugar in a cup of juice. So that's close to 6 to 7.5 teaspoons of sugar. And to put that into perspective, one can of pop has 39 grams of sugar. So 25 to 30 grams in a cup of juice, pretty close to 39 grams in a can of pop. So when we think about what our limits for sugar for the day are, we actually, the World Health Organization recommends women to limit their added sugars, which includes sugars coming from fruit juice, not from the whole fruit itself, but the juices, for example, honey, syrups, etc., to less than 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day, which is about 24 grams of sugar. So you can see in 1 cup of juice, you're getting the whole limit for the day. And for men to limit to less than 9 teaspoons of sugar per day. So we do encourage people to try and choose water as your main drink of choice, and then whole fruit instead of fruit juice, because you get some benefit from the whole fruit and it won't impact your blood sugars as much. Okay, so our next myth, and we'll launch a poll for this one as well. So true or false, fat does not raise my blood sugars, so I don't need to worry about it. So we know that something like cheese, it won't really be affecting our blood sugars the same way something like a cracker might. So could we have all the cheese we want? So in this case, the answer is false. So although it is true that fat does not impact your blood sugars or raise your blood sugars the same way as foods with carbohydrates do, it's still important to think about fat in your foods for your heart health. We know that people living with diabetes have a higher risk of developing heart problems like heart disease. And this is why it's still important to think about the types of fat you eat. So try to limit foods high in saturated fat, such as full fat dairy, like cream and cheese, fatty cuts of meat, and skin on poultry. And instead, have our healthier unsaturated fats. So these are the fats that are actually good for our heart health and don't have that, blood cholesterol raising effect like the saturated fats do. So things like unsalted nuts and seeds, olives, olive oil, avocados, fish and seafood, and lower fat dairy. So lower fat dairy isn't going to be higher in the unsaturated fat, but it's going to have less of the fat that raises our blood cholesterol. So we still want to think about fat, even though it's not necessarily raising our blood sugars, it can impact other aspects of our health. Okay. Moving on to the next, our myth number 4, you should always choose sugar-free products. So here we have some no sugar added vanilla wafer cookies. You may have seen products that say sugar-free, no sugar added, 50% less sugar. And I think that this can be kind of a really alluring kind of marketing claim for people. And the answer is actually false. So we don't sometimes it can be helpful to see that a product has no sugar added or that it has less sugar as maybe it might be a better choice for that, it might be lower in sugar, but in general we still want to be careful because it's still a marketing claim oftentimes. So products that say no sugar added or sugar free or low in sugar can still contain starch, which can affect our blood sugars, and a lot of fat. So I always encourage people to check the ingredients list and the nutrition facts label as a more accurate way to know how that product can fit into your diet. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having a treat every now and then in moderation and enjoying something sweet. That's not going to be the end of the world for your blood sugars. And having treats is still a part of heart healthy and blood sugar friendly eating. And sometimes maybe you want to choose treats that are lower in sugar that won't impact your blood sugars as much. So I can see how there is still place for some of these products, but we still want to take a look at everything else that's in the food. And the best way to really know what's in your food is by checking the ingredients list and the nutrition facts table. So things like no sugar added cookies will still contain carbohydrates and fat. No sugar added juice, we talked about like taking an orange and squeezing out the juice, will still contain concentrated natural sugars. It just won't contain the added sugar, like table sugar. Sugar-free yogurts can still be high in fat. So at the end of the day, we want to look at the label. And so we'll go over really quickly how to read a food label so that you can be a confident, savvy shopper. And so here we have the label for the wafers that I showed you the package of in the front. And the nutrition information is for 3 wafers. So I always say, try and read labels from the top down to the bottom. So when you start from the top, the first thing you'll see is the serving size. And so this is important to look at because that's what all of the nutrition information that's listed below is calculated off of. So if you have 3 wafers, you'll have 130 calories, you'll have 8 grams of fat, 16 grams of carbohydrates. So all that information is listed just for 3 wafers. But if you had 6 wafers or only 1 wafer, you're going to have to do some math to actually figure out how much you're going to be getting in one sitting. So maybe if you had 6 wafers, that's double the serving size. We need to double all of the nutrition information that's listed on the nutrition facts table. If we start with just carbohydrates here, so those will be things that turn to sugar in our blood. You can see how it's bolded. So it's in a darker kind of font, and it says 16 grams. So that's the total carbohydrates in 3 wafers. But underneath we see fiber, sugars, and sugar alcohol. So fiber and sugar, fiber doesn't affect our blood sugars, and that's at 0. So we would always kind of subtract that. There's actually no sugars. So in this case, all the sweetness is coming from sugar alcohols, and sugar alcohols also don't affect our blood sugars. So they're one of those sweeteners. So you may have heard of things like stevia and aspartame. So those are types of sweeteners, and sugar alcohols are another type of sweetener that don't affect our blood sugars. So we would actually look at the total sugars or the total carbohydrates and subtract the 7 grams from the sugar alcohol. And we're left with about 9 grams of carbohydrate for these 3 wafers that can actually affect our blood sugars. So if you're, looking at the amount of carbohydrates in foods or your carbohydrate counting, that's one way that you'd want to be looking at a label to know how much of this is actually affecting your blood sugar. So 9 grams of carbs for 3 wafers doesn't sound too bad. If you compare it to other cookies, for example, it's maybe a decent choice. But what about the other nutrients in this food? So I always encourage people to pay attention to the saturated fat as well. We talked about how the types of fats in our diet can affect our cholesterol levels, and people living with diabetes are at high risk for developing heart issues. So we want to be mindful of our saturated fat. And it's always good to take a look at the percent daily value column here. This is really the best way to quickly and efficiently read a food label. So at the bottom, you'll see it says 5% or less is a little. So any of these percentages that are under 5% would actually mean there's just a little of that nutrient in that product for that serving. And if there's more than 15%, that means there's a lot of that. So if we look at saturated fat, for example, it says 13%. That's pretty close to our 15% cutoff for being high. Whereas sodium is only 2%. So remember, it's under 5. So that's actually considered low or a little amount of sodium. So now let's do some math. If we had 6 wafers instead of the 3, we'd have to double this information. And now suddenly we have 26% of our whole day's worth of saturated fat coming from these few cookies. So it's not like we can, necessarily eat lots and lots of these without having some effect on our diet and in our health. It may not affect our blood sugars as much, but some of the other ingredients are still important to look at. So hopefully that's helpful for the next time you're in the grocery store and you're looking at different products, thinking about not just carbohydrates and sugars, but also some of the other nutrients that are listed there. Okay, myth number 5, true or false? I take medications for diabetes, so I don't need to worry about what I eat. And I think this is, common, especially if someone is on medications and their A1C or their average blood sugars are at target. And so they wonder, well, is there really any benefit to actually making some other diet changes? Or maybe, they think, well, I'm going to be started on medication. So do I really need to make any changes to my diet? So in fact, I do say that it is false. Food is key in the management of diabetes. So following a healthy diet, whether you have pre-diabetes or have been diagnosed with diabetes, nutrition therapy can overall reduce your A1C, so your average blood sugars over the last 2 to 3 months, by 1 to 2%. So that's very significant. That is as much as some medications. So it's very effective, but it does take a lot of work. So, sometimes people still need medications to meet their A1C or blood sugar targets, but oftentimes diet and medications, lifestyle, they all go hand in hand to help control your blood sugars. And sometimes people are able to lower their doses of medications or come off some medications just with diet changes, or prevent starting or delay starting medications with diet and exercise. So it's not always the case, but it's definitely one thing that I think motivates some people to improve their diet. And the Canadian guidelines for diabetes actually encourage and recommend that people with diabetes should receive nutrition counseling by a registered dietitian to lower their A1C levels. And a registered dietitian can help you develop a personalized nutrition plan. And this plan can consider your own cultural needs, your nutrition preferences, any other medical conditions you have to help you achieve your blood sugar and weight management goals. And of course, healthy eating has a variety of other health benefits. So we know that it helps maintain good digestive health, reducing the risk of heart attack and stroke and certain cancers. So although your blood sugars might be, perfectly controlled just with medications, there's still a lot of other benefits to making diet changes. Okay, myth number 6. There's only one diet that is best for managing blood sugars. And I think this one actually comes up quite a bit too. So, you may have heard of the keto diet or vegan, paleo, Mediterranean diet. Is one of these the best for managing blood sugars? Is there one that everyone should be following? So it's actually false. There is not just one diet or eating pattern that has been shown to help with blood sugars. There are actually many ways of eating that have been proven to be helpful for managing blood sugars. And what we know, really, the best diet for you is the one that is most sustainable and enjoyable for you in the long run. So it's not it's great if you can, lose weight and manage your blood sugars in a short period of time through one of these diets, but it's not really going to have that long lasting benefit if you can't sustain that. If you can't follow a diet for more than 6 months because it's too restrictive, or you don't enjoy it, or you feel like it doesn't meet your own cultural needs or lifestyle preferences, it's probably not something you're going to keep up with. So the one thing that research has consistently shown is that it's whatever you can see yourself sustaining for the long term. And there's actually a variety of diet patterns that have been studied in people that have diabetes. So these 3 particular diet patterns, and I say diet pattern, eating pattern, diet, I kind of use those interchangeably. and I don't like to kind of think of a diet as something that's very strict and rigid, you know, or only used for weight loss, but really it's a way of eating for overall optimal health. That could include, you know, good blood sugar control, you know, heart health, managing other conditions. And it's something that hopefully you can enjoy and meets your own cultural needs and your own nutrition preferences. So all three of these diets, the Mediterranean diet, vegan and vegetarian diets, and the DASH diet, they all kind of serve different purposes, or may have different benefits, or might be appropriate for certain people. But at the end of the day, all three of these diet patterns have been studied in people with diabetes, which is really important because a lot of diets that you may hear about online might not have actually been studied in people with diabetes. So you don't know, is this actually safe or applicable to me? These results are maybe great for this particular population they were studied in, but do they actually work for me? And are they safe and appropriate for me? So we know that all three of these diets have been studied in people with diabetes as well as without, and they've shown improved blood sugar control and lowered risk of cardiovascular diseases. So things like heart attack and stroke. There are other diet patterns, of course, that have some emerging research. So you may have heard of low or lower, very low carbohydrate diets. And those, they haven't really been studied in the long term yet to know how they affect our health in the long term. There's, you know, perhaps some new and emerging research on them. And for some people, they could be a great choice. Like the keto diet, for example. But we always encourage you to reach out to your dietitian or your healthcare team before implementing any of those types of diets. Really, before any diet changes, it's good to make sure that, you know, what you're trying out is going to be safe and appropriate for you. But when we look at these three different diets, and I won't go into all the details of each specific one today, but the main overlapping pieces that are emphasized, the main focus for all three of them is whole grains. So we talked about examples of that. So things like barley, quinoa, buckwheat, oats, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. So a lot of our healthy fats, legumes. So our plant proteins like black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, and our healthy fats and oils. So like olive oil, canola oil, avocado oil. So all of them really focus in on a lot of plant foods. That's kind of the common aspect between all these different diet patterns. And they all limit red meats and sweets. The Mediterranean diet is a common diet pattern that we do talk about, especially because it has so many heart health benefits. And I think it's also a great, very versatile pattern of eating that meets a lot of different cultural needs. So it's not just, you know, pasta and Italian food, like a lot of people might think, but really an emphasis on a lot of, you know, our plant foods, fish and seafood. There is some poultry and eggs and yogurt, so some chicken on there. And then at the very top of the pyramid, it's kind of showing what we're kind of having less of, so our red meats and sweets. But you can see that there isn't anything that's completely off the menu, anything that's completely excluded. But I think a lot of people do find this to be a sustainable, realistic way of eating that's also enjoyable. Very flavorful. So it also can be adapted to different cultures and different taste preferences. You know, so I think that's a great way of eating. Of course, if you follow already, you know, if you, for ethical reasons or cultural reasons, or just, you know, taste preferences, you prefer to avoid animal products, vegan and vegetarian diet patterns have a lot of nutrition benefits as well and research to support them. And then the DASH diet, that stands for the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So it was more so intended around blood pressure management. And it has more of an emphasis on, you know, our fruits and vegetables, our grains, and then some low-fat dairy. So it has kind of specific numbers and servings that it would be recommending to get the amounts of the nutrients that are shown to help lower our blood pressure. So which one of these diets is best for you really is going to depend on your own taste preferences, your own lifestyle, what you think you could enjoy in the long term. And a dietitian can help you understand which one might be the best fit for you and kind of go through your current diet and see what could be a good match. Okay, and so our last and final myth today, so myth number 7, true or false, skipping meals is a good way to lose weight and control my blood sugars. So maybe you've heard of intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. It's getting quite popular these days. I think that this is something we get a lot of questions about. So the answer is actually false. So studies actually show no difference in the long term for weight loss for people that did fasting versus continuous caloric restriction. And so when I say fasting, that might, really vary between studies, but often people will either skip a meal or only eat within a certain window during the day, or they might skip a whole day of eating, every week. Whereas continuous caloric or calorie restriction, what that means is that people were tracking their calories, they're eating less every day to meet a specific calorie target to lose weight. And so research has shown that fasting has been shown to be successful in helping people lose weight for some people. But when studies looked at the weight loss in the long term, so meaning 6 months to a year, the amount of weight lost was the same, regardless of whether people were in the group that did fasting or continuous calorie restriction. And most of these studies really only look at people in a very short time, so maybe like 10 weeks or 12 weeks. There isn't a lot of long-term studies here. And so some people may believe that fasting might have additional health benefits. And actually, animal studies have shown some promising results like increased lifespan, protecting against cell injury, but the research in humans is much less convincing, and we really can't say for certain if there are any additional benefits at this time to fasting beyond just the weight loss. But who knows, down the road, maybe there will be some great research that comes out to help us understand this more. Also, these studies are done typically in healthy people. So it's really unclear whether there's potential benefits or risks for people living with diabetes or other health conditions with fasting. And of course, if you're on blood sugar lowering medications, there could be risks with fasting, especially if you're on medications like insulin or glycoside. Those can put you at higher risk of hypoglycemia or low blood sugars. So it's always important to speak with your healthcare team before you implement any new diet changes. So at this time, we don't regularly encourage people to do fasting, but if it's something that someone is interested in doing or feels like it's really the right fit for them, then it's something that I would definitely encourage you to work with a nutritionist, like specifically a registered dietitian, nutrition professional, to help you do safely. And so what I'd like to do is just leave us off with a few myth-busting resources. I think that it's very easy to find lots of information online and a lot of misinformation. So not necessarily everything we see online is really credible or science-based. A lot of the times it's people's opinions. And so it's good to know where to look for credible information on nutrition. And so we have the Diabetes College website. I'm going to try clicking on this, and hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that right there. So the Diabetes College website is actually a website that is created by the University Health Network. I'm just going to double check here if we can Okay, so you probably can't see that, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. So essentially, the Diabetes College has been created by the University Health Network and has a variety of resources. So you may have actually found this webinar through the website, but if you're not familiar with it, there are lots of resources on healthy eating there. So you would just go to www.diabetescollege.ca, and at the very top, you'll see healthy eating. And when you click on that, you can see different things that we talked about today in more detail, like the diabetes plate model that I talked about, food label reading, managing cholesterol, mindful intuitive eating, so really great for managing food cravings. There's also recipes. So lots of really good resources. There's also videos on there, and you'll be able to see a list of upcoming webinars and events as well. So more opportunities to learn about nutrition. Okay, excuse me. And then hopefully you can see my screen still here. Oh, okay, yeah, that's why. All right, you're still, I think we're over here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, and then so Diabetes Canada is another great website that I like to direct people to. So there are recipes. There's actually quite a few recipes on there. And so if you go to kind of the left side of the panel there, you'll see it says Nutrition and Fitness. Click on that and you can search through recipes. They're nice because they have a video as well, instructions, and the nutrition breakdown. And I think there's about 92 recipes there to choose from. So that's a great resource. And they have lots of other really good downloadable handouts. So if there's anything specific that you're looking to print out, that's a good resource as well. And just good reading in general. So lots on the diabetes plate model, carbohydrate counting, if that's something you want to learn more about, and other additional resources too. So lots of great information on both of those websites that you can access to bust some myths. I hope that that was helpful for everyone.